It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. And it has all led up to this. Last week, we did a mock draft, a little bit of a summary, a little bit of a celebration of the end of our college football season here at Camp Dynasty, transitioning to draft season, the best time of the year for the next 4 to 5 months. We're just going to be all systems go towards the NFL draft. And our mock draft was fun. We know these players pretty well. It was fun to put that together. We got a lot of reaction to it, positive stuff. Thank you to everybody who commented on the YouTube video and expressed their excitement about the mock and what's to come. And now it gets really real, because I feel like I should have like a full beard right now. I should look like Tom Hanks from Castaway, because it's like we're crawling out of the cave after the endless film grind to get to this moment, which is the first episode of Rankings 2.0, wide receivers.
Yep. There's a reason they call this the most wonderful time of the year. And it's because you get to go take some days off and sit in a room and stare at your computer and break down these players, take some notes and discuss this. So, we appreciate all the love on the mock draft, of course. All the comments, all the likes, all great. I'll love to hear the response and, the community kind of feeling some excitement about this 2026 class and, telling us where you're sitting in your drafts and what you're thinking. Always love to hear that. And so keep that up, and we'll keep, responding as much as we can. And we'll probably have some discussion about it here in this episode too, on comments from that last video. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about these receivers. We talked about quite a few of them last week in our mock draft, and hopefully we can delve a little deeper and glean a little more this week than we did last week.
Yeah, if you've been with us before, you kind of know how this works. If you haven't, this is really the big moment of the year where we are diving in all 22 film for these guys, coming out with, like, we know these guys very well, but it's a big difference from like I'm following the week to week, I'm kind of catching up where I can, to I am watching several all 22 games for each one of these guys that we're going to talk about today. And there's some surprises that come from that process, but honestly, this year I think there weren't a ton of surprises. I think there were a lot of these wide receivers that we've been talking about all year were kind of the ones that were standing out to me. That being said, this is an incredibly deep wide receiver class. There are a lot of names to know in this wide receiver class. So I watched as many as I could to put together a good list to come here, but there are more that I would like to watch. And I think a lot of those players are ones that we will be talking about, I think, through the postseason process, the Senior Bowl guys, some of the combine guys, stuff like that. But honestly, for this one, I'm focused on seniors and I'm focused on early declares. That's kind of how I went into this. I'm just trying to get a picture of the guys that we know are going to be in this class.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to do things. There's a few guys that, you want to project are going to be in the NFL, but I think you try to focus on, the guys that for sure, because as we go along in these ranking series, we'll know more and more about how this draft class is going to shape up. We'll know, which guys are chasing the NIL money versus what guys are going to go into the NFL draft and the portal and everything. But with the information we have right now, that's all we can work with.
Okay, so we do top 8 for wide receiver. And I think in doing that, we'll probably end up with about 10 names here, because we usually have a few that are off one another's lists. But without further ado, there's a lot to get through. Let's kick it off. And you know that I'm going to do it to you. go ahead and give me your number 8 wide receiver in this class.
My number 8 wide receiver in this class is Antonio Williams from Clemson. This is number 0 on Clemson, and if you've been with us, you've heard this name many times through the summer, through the season. We've talked about him a lot, but this is a small athletic wide receiver. He's 5'11", 190. He's a slot receiver. Played 93% of his slot snaps in the slot this season. Just quicker than hell. Like, he gets in and out of his breaks in a hurry. But he can also play a little bit of deep threat here and there. He can run the ball. He's a very versatile player. Feels like the type of guy that fits into a lot of NFL offenses, which is why he finds his way up here despite kind of a lackluster statistical season. Here at Clemson, had 55 catches, 611 yards, 4 touchdowns. You might look at that and be like, that's not that sexy. Also had 78 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So it's like, he has a little bit of this like gadget player kind of vibe to him, but he also solid route runner. He's pretty good in contested catch situations, I think. In one-on-one situations, I like him. Finds himself open quite a bit. Reads blocks well, and that comes from being a pretty solid runner, and just finds a way to fall forward on these runs a lot of little slant routes, a lot of RPO plays in this Clemson offense where he's getting open quick over the middle, getting the ball, and then carrying a guy another 2 yards. And it just feels like a really valuable skill set to have for an NFL offense, for the modern NFL. So I even though maybe wasn't what we were 100% expecting out of Antonio Williams, still felt pretty good about having him in this top 8.
Yeah, honestly, so I have him at number 7.
Okay.
Honestly, this season kind of was what I was hoping for from Williams. Guys passed him by on this list for me. He was a top 5 wide receiver coming into the season for both of us. But when I watched the film back from this year, it was pretty good. He looked good. It wasn't the standout statistical season, like you said, because he was dealing with some injuries. And obviously this Clemson team was a big time disappointment. However, I thought he actually looked a little bit better than last year on film. I really thought that the route to route consistency was a little bit better from him this year. Really liked what I saw after the catch from him this year. I like how you kind of framed it as a little bit of a gadgety player, but not in the I don't know what to do with you way.
Not a derogatory gadget player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He can run real routes, but also you can scheme him touches, you can design rushes for him.
Through a touchdown.
Through a touchdown. What can't he do? Honestly, just get the ball in his hands. So I mean, the yak numbers also just improved, 5.8 yards after catch per reception this year. That was the highest since his freshman season where he had 6.1. You mentioned his ability at the catch point in contested situations. I also think that that's a positive for him. This season, he was 6 for 13, 46%. It's nothing insane, but when you consider that he's 5'11", 190, and he's making these plays down the field, post routes where he's got, the corner trailing him and the safety kind of over the top, and he's able to make the high point catch kind of in between both of them. You see that show up from him. And honestly, just his hands in general were much improved this year. That was one of the kind of negatives for him on the scouting report heading into the season, was that he had 8 drops last year. It was almost 10%. He got that back down to only 1 drop for 1.8% on the year. So the hands were much improved. The yards after the catch skill was much improved. The route running was kind of on par with what I had seen from him before. You mentioned the slants, the glance RPO routes, but then he's also running these like downfield routes. The post was a big play that they would work for him occasionally. So yeah, I mean, I was actually really impressed. I think he slots in for me as like a second round graded wide receiver right now.
And
Little
are
bit
you talking
limited.
about NFL or
NFL,
yeah?
yes, second round NFL grade for me. Um, uh, just a little bit, lacking in the size department. We'll talk about some of kind of his areas for growth here in a second. But I was actually really impressed considering the nature of this season. And if you just stare at the stat sheet, you might think, oh, wait a minute, did he trail off again, or what happened here?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I liked what I saw. I just wish like you say like you earn targets and all that. Like I think that's true to an extent. I think like when your offense is a disaster, you can't really earn targets. But I just wish would have seen like him become almost like an evolved form of what he was, because he talked a lot after his junior season about how like unfinished business and how he wanted to take this like big leap forward, and he hadn't shown what he wanted to show. And I think he was better. I just don't know if it was like a leap above what he was as a junior, besides looking like a little quicker, a little burstier, because he was a little further removed from the injury.
Well, and then that will segue into kind of the areas of, opportunity. We like to be positive here. It's not a weakness. How can we get better?
Right.
Um, I think one of the things for Williams for me, first of all, like I do think this situation was holding him back this year. I think that does contribute a little bit to why this was a little bit lackluster. Even, I mean, he did miss some time, but, ultimately 611 yards, 4 touchdowns, not inspiring in that area. But I do think the situation was holding him back. I think there was a little bit more of the meat on the bone, as we like to say here, for him this season. However, I think first and foremost for me, he did miss time with an injury. That has been something that has plagued him through college. And as an undersized wide receiver, that's going to be kind of the number one thing that I'm like, well, I'm not really going to stand on the table for you if you're not proving that you can stay healthy at this size at the college level. That's it. So right there, you get a little bit of that on the scouting report. And then also, I think he's just not that fast. Like he's more bursty and explosive than fast. He's not a player that is consistently threatening over the top. They will run him on these deep routes. They'll run him on the post route, but more often than not, he's forced into making that contested play. Or if he does get over the top, he usually, or in the cases that I saw, was getting caught from behind. So 5'11, 190, a little bit of an injury bug, not the fastest player on the field, and not showing you a consistent ability to win over the top and finish those deep plays with just technique alone, like some of these other guys can. So those were the two things that really stood out for me.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me was the speed, where I was like, if you're going to be like this kind of player, I kind of want you to have that next gear that you can hit, where once you get that separation or once you turn that corner, you can break an angle of these like safeties or these linebackers that are bearing down. You can fly up that sideline and be gone. And so I noticed the same thing. Also, red flag, stopped returning punts. Did that last year a decent amount. It wasn't a ton, but I had 17 punt returns last year. Only had 5 this year, and it was in the last 3 games of the season. So I don't know what's up with that, but I don't love that, because like you're probably the team's most dynamic playmaker. There's other guys in this draft that are like the same archetype of player that do play special teams and do return punts. And the reason I bring that up, I know you're like, this is a fantasy podcast, return, whatever. Stay on a team, get on a team, like that's job number one. Get drafted, and a good way to do that is to show that you can consistently field punts and return punts. I know teams that have no punt returners. I'm looking at, I'm down the road from one right now. Like they do not have a punt returner. It'd be great if Antonio Williams could return punts for this team. But that's just a smaller thing, but it helps your draft stock for sure if you are a proven commodity in the special teams department.
We're going to do player comps later. We do this every year. It's called This or That. It's going to happen next year. This one like really jumped out at me a little bit though. What do you think about Antonio Williams, Khalil Shakir?
That's interesting. Khalil Shakir, really good football player, I would say. And
Like-
as like, I like it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. A good good yak player that not the most athletic player in the world, but is open all the time and plays in the slot. Yeah, I can get down with that.
Like a wide receiver 3 in fantasy.
Right.
Like that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I can
like
pop
similar-
off every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
I like it.
all right. One down.
So who's your number 8?
My number 8 is Germie Bernard.
Okay. Hell yeah.
You have him
He's
higher?
not in my he's not in my 8.
Okay, so first and foremost, there is no all 22 that I could access for Germie Bernard.
Unfortunate. Alabama gatekeeping.
Yes. So that is an important distinction to make here. And I say that because I think this is a player that could rise for me, but I just don't feel like I have enough evidence to support that claim. However-
This is why I left him out of my 8, because I just couldn't watch him, and so I
Right.
didn't feel
I watched what I could. I did it the old school way, the dirty way,
Yeah.
which is just going on YouTube and type in Germie Bernard versus
Yep.
and hoping that you can catch enough in his routes to
all
like figure out what he's
Germie
doing.
Bernard. Yeah.
So that's my disclaimer here. And we will fill in the Germie Bernard gaps as that becomes available, which I'm sure that it will at some point. But I mean, he's just a really fun player that I think represents a kind of one of these like a little bit like how we were just talking about Antonio Williams, where he's a little bit of a do-it-all. And this is not a comp. I'm not going to do a comp for every
Yeah.
player. We've taken a couple of years off of this one.
T. Higgins. No.
No. How about Deebo Samuel?
Okay.
And it's not a comp, but in terms of deployment, I think there's a world where you can use like a team can get very creative with him in that capacity.
And
Like,
you
he's
don't
not-
mean like today, Deebo Samuel, right?
No,
Okay.
not 30-year-old Commanders Deebo.
Yeah.
God, no.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and the reason I say that is because it's a similar build, a little bit lighter than Deebo, especially these days. But
Come on.
I'm sorry, I have him on my team. I can poke fun at him.
Right.
That's how I
Is he
feel about
starting
it.
in your playoff game?
No, he's
Okay.
not.
All right.
Uh,
Fat shaming him and benching him.
honorary team captain on the bench.
Right.
But, Bernard, little bit smaller than Deebo, coming in at about 6 foot 200 pounds, listed 6'1", 204 actually, but maybe a little bit shave a little bit off of each of those numbers perhaps. But he has that sort of like kind of stockier build, and he's a player that is used in a variety of ways. That goes all the way back to his days at Washington. When we first talked about Bernard, when he was transferring to Alabama, he was the 4th wide receiver behind that trio that we had in the 2024 draft with Odunze, McMillan, and Polk. He was the 4th guy, and he was almost exclusively a gadget player for them. Scheme touches, screens, rushing plays, all of that stuff. That was what he was doing there. And Kalen DeBoer brings him over to Alabama, and he spends 2 seasons there. And honestly, this year, like, he's running real routes, absolutely, but they're also using him kind of in that in a similar way where it's like we're gonna run him on a screen, we're gonna direct snap it to him, we're gonna run a trick play to him. There's a play against Tennessee. It's a backwards pass, wide receiver pass play where it gets like tossed all the way over to the sideline, and then he's gonna pass it. He the pass isn't there. He makes like 3 Tennessee players miss and then gets 10 yards just running the ball on that play. And like that's kind of who he is. I think he is an offensive, one of these kind of like offensive weapon types. But I saw enough from him this year in what I was able to watch that kind of says that he has some ability to run routes as well. I do think he's fairly raw in that department. So that's kind of why he ends up here at number 8 right now. But super creative, super talented yak player, 6.2 yards after catch per reception this year, consistently making guys miss in open spaces. He had the play against Georgia recently where they just get it to him like 5 yards and he stiff arms 2 guys and then reverses field and scores on that play. Like that's kind of what you're getting here. He's a little bit of a bully. He's a little bit of a firecracker type. Like he's got a little bit of that elusiveness and strength when he's trying to make guys miss. And I just think he's a fun player that I think an NFL offense is going to look at and think, what can we do with this guy? And what can we develop him into from this point forward?
Yeah, I from what I watched of him, I had an initial idea of like what I thought Germie Bernard was as a player, and like it was not the case. Like it was not the reality of who he is as a player. Because I remember thinking when I came in, I was like, because I watched the Florida State game, that was like the first impression of this season, what Germie Bernard was going to be, and it felt like he was doing a lot of like regular wide receiver stuff, like sitting down at the sticks, running these like, kind of big routes, a lot of hitches, a lot of like quick hitters. And I felt like just from that, I had this like idea of Germie Bernard burning my head. And then like watch some more and it's like, oh, they're handing him the ball. Like he had 107 rushing yards this season, had 2 rushing touchdowns. And then, like you said, he was doing a lot of that like dirty work over the middle where they're kind of scheming him open, a lot of mesh stuff where he's kind of popping out the other side and giving him the ball in his hands. And then he's also like a pretty clean route runner. And so like I like Germie a lot, and like my opinion probably will change on him if I can get my hands on some more tape and like see what he's doing down to down, things like that. And then if you're going to be a player like that, also have to like be able to block. And I know nobody wants to talk about that, but you like if you're going to be lining up in the backfield, you got to be able to like check into pass protection. I'm sorry, like I know it sucks, but every once in a while you're going to have to do that, and you're going to have to be able to protect or lead block every once in a while. So outside of that stuff, Germie Bernard feels like a very fun player that could be added into a lot of offenses. Kind of similar to what I was saying about Antonio Williams. It's like kind of plug and play in most of these offenses that are running these high play action, a lot of crossers, stuff like that, where we're just trying to scheme guys open rather than rely on one-on-one old school wide receiver one stuff. Doesn't really like happen very much anymore. It's still important to have those skills, but it's also like, hey, if I can just run play action, have him come underneath and pop out the other side wide open, he get the ball in his hands, get a free 6 yards. Going to do that every time. So feels like that kind of player.
Yeah, I agree. And good against zone from what I was able to see, like good on second reaction, extended play, like active, trying to find a space. Made some nice catches in the games that I watched up against the sideline. Hands are good in general. Only 1 drop this year, 1.7%. He's a career 2.6% drop rate player. So very reliable hands. And then the missed tackles forced number was 15 this year, 35 in his career. And this is not a player that has a ton of touches. Like these last 2 years at Alabama, 50 receptions, 57 receptions. Not a super high volume player, 762 yards this year, but he makes the most with the touches that he gets. And I think this is another one of those guys that isn't necessarily, I don't think, reflective of the final stat line. Like you kind of see these back-to-back years, 700 yards. It's like, oh, it's a good player, but I think there's a little bit more here, and I think this is a player that can still continue to develop also at the NFL level.
How many times are we going to say that? The box score doesn't match what we see.
How many wide receivers do we have
Yeah,
left?
exactly.
All right. Well, that is my number 8, and we know your number 8. So your number 7
is Casey Concepcion. Texas A&M wide receiver transferred over from NC State. Now, this is a junior, so TBD. I don't think we've seen a declare out of him, but had a nice season in his junior year after not that sexy season in his sophomore year at NC State, which is probably part of the reason why he transferred. Is he had 88 targets, only had 53 catches for 460 yards. Watching a little bit of that and a little bit of A&M stuff, it's kind of apparent that they were like, hey, Casey Concepcion is our gadget wide receiver at NC State. We're going to throw him a bunch of checkdowns and screens, and kind of reminiscent of Luther Burden's last year at Mizzou, where they're just like, well, hey, we need to get this guy the ball because he's the best player on our offense, no matter how difficult it is for him once the ball in his hands. Hey, that's up to him to decide. Kind of felt like that his sophomore year at NC State, but comes to A&M and works back into form that he was his freshman season at NC State, where getting the ball a little more downfield, gets all the way up to 15.5 yards per reception, which was a career high, versus 8.7 his sophomore year, so almost doubles his yards per reception. Has 57 catches, 886 yards, 9 touchdowns, returns kicks, hell yeah, and is great at it. This is kind of we talked about in the mock draft Antonio Williams versus Casey Concepcion, kind of tied those conversations together. Kind of feel a similar way after watching them both, where they, Casey Concepcion 5'11", 190. Antonio Williams 5'11", 190. Casey Concepcion is playing only 35% of his snaps in the slot though. And 65% outside. So that's I think the big differentiator between these two players is Antonio Williams is solely a slot player. He's not going outside pretty much at all, 5% of the time, while Concepcion is playing, pretty much a majority outside. And you can see, why I might have like a higher opinion of him. Do you have him on your list before I continue rambling?
I do. He is at number 6.
Okay, great. Sick. Okay, so have a little bit higher opinion because it's like he feels more versatile, feels more athletic. He has that burst, but he also has the speed. And I think that shows up especially also going to run the ball a little bit. He is a gadgety player. Again, not a derogatory version of gadgety. Like he's a guy that can help an offense, a guy that can find multiple spots to fill in and move around a formation, which, Williams is pretty much like you're going to sit him in the slot, and like in 2 wide receiver sets, he's probably not going to play. And Concepcion has that flexibility to be able to pop outside, and he can win on big routes, which I think is another thing that it's like, oh, okay, yeah, Concepcion has that in his bag too. I kind of kept feeling that watching the All-22 is like, oh, hey, another play where it's like, I just don't know if these other guys can do that, where you get down the list. And I kind of said last week that these guys, you can kind of lump them all into one big tier. And I'm starting to sort that out now a little more that you've watched more and more. And I feel like Concepcion kind of finds his way up a level because he has these big wins on the outside, these comeback routes, these digs, these posts where he's just like, getting these guys off balance and then winning over the top. So I was impressed. I came out pleasantly surprised, I think, with the Concepcion tape.
Yeah, I thought Concepcion and Williams were very similar players. I mean, you said it. The size is basically the same. A lot of the same strengths and weaknesses, honestly. But I think Concepcion kind of gets the tiebreaker nod for me with these two, gets the spot up on Williams because of a few of the things that you touched on. Little bit more versatile. He is playing outside 65% of the time. You're seeing him work against press coverage. You're seeing him be able to beat press coverage even at this size. You're seeing him win down the field a little bit more consistently and often than Williams is out of the slot. Um, and honestly, I think he was also just Williams is a really good yak player. I think Concepcion is a great yak player.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of his superpower right now. And that's why NC State, when he was there, it was like they're just trying to get the ball in his hands as much as they can. We've talked a little bit about this before, but the true freshman season where he was the best true freshman receiver that season, with 845 yards and 10 touchdowns for them. He also had 300 yards rushing that season. Like he was an offensive weapon completely for them. And then last year, when I watched him coming into the year, the 2024 stuff, it just, to me, it seemed like there was some effort concerns. It seemed like he was a little checked out. The team was worse. The offense was kind of a disaster. And I think this transfer to Texas A&M, and we're going to get to watch him in the playoff as well now, this was really good for him. Now, that being said, I do think there were still some effort concerns on tape with him this year. Like some of the routes were a little lazy to me, little rounded, not sinking. Like for as explosive of an athlete as he is, like he's not always sinking the hip super well. He's not exploding off of the stem, like rounding these dig routes, kind of lazy running curl routes, things like that. Like there's a little bit of that with him. But I think when you consider like what does the best of this player look like, it's really exciting. I mean, he can be one of these kind of new age NFL guys, I think, where he is kind of inside outside yak player, can make some tough catches as well. The hands in general have kind of always been a little bit of an issue. Just like he's good in contested situations this year, but another season where he has 6 drops, 9.5%. He's a career 9% drop player. So that's kind of one of the big red flags for him as well. But
I think he might have small hands.
That would make sense.
Like
yeah.
it just feels like even when you're going up to make these contested catches, you can kind of see. Feels like he's kind of struggling to get all the way around the ball. But I don't know. I won't speculate until. Well, I am speculating, but we'll know for sure until we see measurements come out of the combine.
Yeah. So there are legitimate weaknesses with his profile and his game. That's why he is kind of sitting a little bit of like a tier jump below the guys that we're going to talk about in a minute here, I think. But I'm with you. I was pleasantly surprised by his 2025 film after what I watched from his last season at NC State.
So he was your number 6. So we know you're 8, 7, and you're 6.
That is correct.
Okay. So I guess I'll keep going.
Keep it rolling.
Sure. This is where I have Chris Bell.
And this is your number 6, right?
This is my number 6.
Okay.
So Chris Bell, wide receiver from Louisville, 6'2", 220. He's number 0. Tore his ACL about a little under a month ago now, or a little over a month ago now, on November 22nd. So we're probably not going to see him until he's a senior. He's a senior at Louisville. Had 72 catches, 917 yards, 6 touchdowns. I don't know what the rules are about coming back to college in 2025 with any of these players, but assuming he goes out for the draft is what I'm doing, and
I think he has to.
yeah, so wouldn't see him until probably, I mean, like late September at the earliest, October, probably late October at the latest. Depends on the timetable, depends on the injury, depends on the recovery. I mean, like so many different wrinkles in this. But Chris Bell's an awesome player. That's kind of the big and the small of it. Is like I felt a lot more confident watching Chris Bell than I did these other guys, and it was just a size, speed, technique kind of combination for this guy where he gets open early, gets the ball in his hands, and makes something happen more often than not. I thought the 9 missed tackles force was kind of like low. Like I felt like he was really good after the catch, and there's more to being good after the catch than just like pumping up your PFF MTF number.
He was pulling away from guys
Yeah,
more than I think he was forced into those missed tackles forced situations.
exactly. So I was just like, man, this big guy can move, and it also felt like, he's open all the time, and he's like earning a ton of targets. He had 105 targets this year, which is a huge jump from any of his previous seasons. He had 62 was his previous high in a season. Had 105. So I just like there were so many things that I were checking boxes for me with Bell, and yes, big guy run fast is like not great analysis because that's how you end up with some a lot of busts. Is you're like, man, that guy has 220 pounds and can move. But I think he's also like really good attacking the ball in the air. Comes back to the ball well. He had quite a few underthrows in this season, and coming back and working to the ball back shoulder. I think he did a pretty good job. Could work on balance. I think is like my biggest thing is like staying on your feet when working through some of those tougher catches, because talk about some of the guys as we get higher up in this conversation, and it's like they make these tough catches, stay on their feet, get another couple yards, stay on their feet, maybe score. While Bell, like, come back, make that sick catch, but then we're just like going down. That's the end of it. And I just feel like with this like sick speed and like the like angles that he's taking and making people miss, like stay on your feet as long as you can, survive to get to that yak situation. So yeah, I don't know like what he'll look like next season. Probably won't be sexy next year. The rookie numbers probably aren't going to look good, but going into buy for 2027, buy Chris Bell. But yeah, I don't know.
So Chris Bell is not in my top 8, but I think he is a top 8 wide receiver in the class. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I know where you're going.
Like, what's really, this is one of the worst like players for that injury to happen to, because I think with Chris Bell, the 6'2", 220, like flying away from guys on like a crossing route type stuff and the back shoulder stuff that they were working, like all of that like lights your eyeballs up a little bit. And we got a little bit of that. Like I remember when we're giving him badges, he had that huge run in the middle of the season, and the timeline is kind of like, you're seeing this, right? You know who that looks like, right? And people are talking about AJ Brown. That's kind of the like tantalizing nature of this player. What you want to see him get better at is as a route runner and as a technician. Like, let's put a little bit more nuance with this amazing blend of size and athleticism that you have. And now we have a player that has torn his ACL late in a college season, that will most likely miss a majority of his rookie season, and possibly, like he's going to miss all of like next summer and that whole thing.
Yeah.
And that is such a big deal for guys, and especially players like this. So to me, it's kind of a scary situation, and I'm very curious to see what the NFL does with this. Like, where is Chris Bell going to be drafted, knowing that he is going to miss all of that important, the mini camp, the training camp, all of that, and then a lot of his rookie season as well. So, with that, under those conditions, I am just kind of not ready to put Chris Bell in this conversation yet, until I kind of have a better sense of what the NFL is going to do with him.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And like if he ends up being like high third round pick, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like so the NFL doesn't super care. But yeah, missing all of that camp starting out in your, because like you think about the timeline of an NFL player and like what it's going to look like, and you go into late April, June or May, June, and you're in like rookie minicamp, OTAs, training camp, and you miss all of that. You're taking mental reps for all of that, and then you get into preseason. You're not touching that. And like, are they going to throw you in the middle of week 8 when they're like potentially in playoff position? Like, I don't know. They're kind of hard pressed to say that. So like you said, probably not going to see a whole lot of them, like a red shirt rookie season. And then so much changes year to year with an NFL franchise that like, who knows what this looks like? What's that wide receiver room look like a year after that? What does that coaching staff look like? What does the front office look like a year after? So yes, a lot can change before that 2027 redshirt rookie season for Chris Bell. But I think the talent, the athleticism is all like, it kind of jumps off the screen, where I feel good about who he is as a player and what he can do well, that I guess I'm hopeful that this can turn into a fruitful NFL career.
You're definitely right to include him on this list, and I'm glad that one of us did, so we could have this conversation at least. And because it's not really fair to the player and the body of work that he put up before the injury, and the improvement that we saw. I mean, this was a big jump from Chris Bell this year. This was a real like senior year breakout moment for him, where it was kind of all coming together. And then unfortunately, like we have this injury happen, and then it's like, well, I don't know what the future holds anymore. So fun stuff. Torn ACLs.
Let's just continue. Let's just move on from
too
that.
soon. I get it.
God.
I get it. All right. So where are we then? My number 5.
You're number 5 already.
Oh my God. Top 5. This is going to be Elijah Sarratt.
I have him in my 5 spot as well.
Okay.
Oh boy. Here we go.
Yep. Are we on the ride now?
I mean, I think we're sitting in the same roller coaster car.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe some surprises are coming. I don't know. So Elijah Sarratt, this has been a player that we've been talking about for a long time. We talked about him a lot last year. Kind of gave his story last year, the transfer to Indiana from James Madison, and he had transferred to James Madison from St. Francis, I believe. I should have pulled this up. But it was an FCS program. Yeah, St. Francis. And he transfers. What?
That's a good pull.
Yeah. I don't know how I don't even remember what I had for lunch today, but I remember that he went to St. Francis. And then he goes to James Madison. That's of course Curt Cignetti, and that whole thing. And then Cignetti goes to Indiana and brings Sarratt with him. And Sarratt has an awesome season last year, 957 yards, 8 touchdowns. So we were talking about him his junior year. It's like maybe he'll declare. He opts to stay. And Indiana goes on to have this amazing season. You know, Cignetti is the king of the world, and Mendoza comes in, wins the Heisman, and Sarratt is his number one guy. And Sarratt ends up having one of his better seasons. He did miss some time, which kind of held back the yardage total in this season, but he had a career high 12 touchdowns, 687 yards, and really pre-injury, he was having a big time season. Like if he had stayed healthy the entire way, I think he would have set career highs and everything. Because he was very much a different player. Even when he came back from the injury, he was a different player. So looking at the pre-injury, most of the film that I watched from him was before week 7. So this was like, what did Sarratt look like out of the gate? He was awesome. I mean, I went into this like, is this just my guy? Like, am I a little bit like, I love this guy, I love his story. He looked awesome this year. I mean, 6'2", 213, playing outside 86% of the time, way more explosive than I thought he was. Like he gets off the line well. He gets into his stem and into his breaks in a hurry. The slant route, which you called out, I believe, last week when we talked about him, awesome. I mean, just a really, really nice route. His signature route, though, is the out route. He runs that route a lot, both the quick out and the deeper out. He's doing that a lot, and he knows how to get open on that route almost always. Really talented route runner in general, really understands leverage and how to manipulate a corner and his eyes, uses the upper body in his routes, and really good at the catch point too. I think this year, only 3 drops, 5.6%. He was a little bit down in the contested department this year with 8 for 22. That was only 36%. But career, he's 58%. And you definitely see the skill. I mean, this is a stat that ebbs and flows. You're not always necessarily going to be a 60% contested catch player. But you saw the back shoulder routes and the fade routes that they were running for him. That's how he gets to this 12 touchdown number. Like, he definitely has skill one-on-one and when he has to go up and make a play on it. So one of these guys finally that has the size and the technical ability as a route runner that really kind of starts what I think is a next tier in this class.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think I feel a lot more confident about Sarratt than I do, most of these guys or all of these guys that we had below him. Plays with pace. I think that's the biggest note I have on him is like he is gonna control every situation with this. Like you're playing this one-on-one game with the DB if you're playing man, and you're like running these setups, and you always want to be in control. You know what you're doing, they don't. And Sarratt always feels like he's in control of that situation. These corners are sitting and they're playing a reaction game instead of like reading cues and timing and like firing off the ball. And he is such like a solid-bodied wide receiver that like once he is between the DB and the ball, I'm not going to say it's game over because like there are some drops in here, there are some breakups, there are some times where cornerbacks play through him, but it feels like such a, you can feel so confident throwing the ball to Sarratt, especially like on those slant routes where he's, pinning this guy on his back hip. And it's like, man, you're going to have to get through me to get to the ball. You're going to have to try not to commit pass interference to get after this play. And I think that that's extremely valuable, especially out of a guy that is this size. We talked about this class at length throughout the season, and like, how is every player 5'11", 190 pounds? We already talked about two of them in this episode so far with Antonio Williams and Casey Concepcion. But Sarratt has this size at 6'2", 213, and then has the ability to move inside and play some slot. He played only 13% of the time this season with Indiana in the slot, but you still see like the skills that he has could easily translate him into being like one of these big slot receivers that can vacuum up targets in an offense, especially like in a bad offense, because I think he's also a very trustworthy wide receiver. So if you have like a young quarterback or something like that, and you just need somebody in the room that is going to get open and gonna I know this sounds really simple. Get open and catch the ball. Like that. That's what Sarratt does really well. And I feel like if you're sitting there and you're like, I need a high floor player, and again, not a derogatory thing to say, but like, some people might take it that way as like, it's not a sexy pick, but Sarratt just like does a lot of things really well. And I think when it comes down to brass tacks, like what kind of receiver do you want? I want this kind of guy.
In a former year, we would have probably talked about him as low upside. Like, what you see is what you get. He's a high floor, whatever, wide receiver 2 type. I'm just not going to say that, because I think he's one of the guys that right now is defying those expectations in the NFL when these kinds of players get into the league, because I think he is going to be one of these 60-40 kind of players. I think this 80% outside, I think he is going into the slot way more often at the NFL level. Like, they're going to move him around, and they're going to use him kind of in the way that you're seeing some of these bigger body players getting used right now. And I'm not going to say any names because I don't want to put that nonsense out into the universe, but I think you can maybe picture some of the players that I'm talking about, and one in particular who's like maybe the best wide receiver in the league right now. But with Sarratt, no, I think his role is going to change at the NFL level. He's going to be a little bit more inside outside because he has that, the route running chops to win in all areas. And I think one of the other things that really stood out to me this year that I wasn't expecting to see, he's better after the catch than I gave him credit for. Like, his numbers after the catch aren't all that imposing, but like, he is one of these guys that like, he'll catch it and he'll kind of already have a plan. Like, he is transitioning from the catch point into being a runner way quicker and way smoother than I expected. And he had some really nice yak plays this year, like up against the sideline where he's kind of slipping guys and making something happen in a tight area. And then there's also the plays where he's working in the middle of the field and doing that as well. So I think, only 8 missed tackles forced, 5.4 yards after catch per reception. But I think those numbers are a little bit, they're not entirely reflective of the ability that I think he has in that area.
I also think he's a strong blocker in the run game. I feel like you look at a guy with this kind of build and you hope that he would be, ready and willing and good at blocking. And it feels like he does a pretty good job at, getting guys sealed off. They'll run him as like a kind of trap blocker every once in a while, or run him on inside zone across the formation to like pick up a D end every once in a while. And while it's not like, his best asset, he's not a tight end, but he gets the job done on those kind of plays. Physical route runner, I think,
Yes.
is how I would describe him. I think there's like many, you say somebody's a good route runner and you picture one thing. You picture like, Garrett Wilson or Devontae Adams, where these guys are the never getting touched and have 6 yards of separation. And Sarratt is not that, but he's like leaning into their body and putting his shoulder into their chest plate and then like exploding to the other direction and finding these yards of separation and finding ways to get open. And so I think without committing offensive pass interference, to be clear. But I support people that commit offensive pass. Make the ref call it, man, because they don't want to call it.
Matt Harmon is the one that says just do it on every play.
Yep,
They're not going to call it every play.
Yep. I think Ben Solak also says always commit OPI.
Yeah.
So I'm on board with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great hand usage. That was another thing I had written down for him. Great against press in that using his hands. In terms of the areas of opportunity for Elijah Sarratt, I mean, I'm not going to do the whole low upside thing, but he's more explosive off the line of scrimmage than I thought he was going to be. He's not a top end athlete. Like he's not going to consistently threaten vertically. I mean, that's really never been his game. You saw a little bit more of that this year. I mean, there was at least one like deep post where he just absolutely crushed a guy. But again, that's more with his ability as a route runner than just with pure athleticism and speed. That's why he's kind of had, a little bit more contested situations over the years, is because it's like, if they're going to work him down the sideline, it's going to end up where he has to go over the top of a guy and make that play. He's not going to win vertically and create that vertical separation very often. So I think that really kind of is like the number one thing for him. And it's a big one because like there's guys ahead of him that are just much better athletes. But I think that's maybe not as big of a concern in today's NFL than maybe it was once upon a time.
Yeah, I'd say explosion is not his strong suit. And then the fact that he's like this physical route runner is also like, it's a pro, but it's also a con because like if you're playing against a good physical corner that's like manned up on you in the NFL, it's going to be real hard to shed that guy. If you're getting into his space and you're playing against like, Sauce Gardner or something like that, that he's going to be in your pocket and you try to like push off of him and he's not going anywhere. These sticky corners are hard to get rid of if you're not going to beat him with technique and you're trying to beat him with, your strength and your, pushing off a little bit. So I think like that's another thing where develop a little more of that timing-based, rhythm-based route running rather than relying so often on using your body and your physicality to get open.
Number 4 for you,
Denzel Boston.
Shocking. He's also number 4 for me.
Yeah. All right. So Denzel Boston, wide receiver from Washington, number 12. He's 6'4", 209 pounds, listed weight, had 62 catches for 880 yards and 11 touchdowns this year. This is your ex-wide receiver of the draft. This is the guy that you're going to stick outside and have him, run a lot of these big routes that we're talking about. Talk about, goes, post, corners, comebacks, where you digs, where you are going to be either you're going to be like the backside of this play where quarterback has to look a guy off and it's your job to create a big play. And whether or not that works is solely on your ability to make that happen. And Boston is that guy where he is, plays 81% of his snaps on the outside. So is playing that role in college that he's probably going to play in the NFL. And we talk a lot about translating from being an outside receiver in college to being this like big slot. We just had that conversation with Sarratt where, yeah, we'd love to see him be a big slot. I don't want to see that out of Boston. I want to see him on the outside as often as possible. We can throw him in the slot, that 10, 15% of the time, that's fine. But this guy was built to play X. And I think that is a perfect place to have him because he excels at everything that makes an X receiver good at what they're good at. He once he opens up his gate has good speed. I think like he's a little slow off the line. I don't love his releases that much, but like once he gets into his route, it is very smooth. It is very good technically, really good at the catch point. I mean, this is one of the best contested catch guys in the class. This is a good adjuster to the football all around. Like has a really big catch radius. Would have had a sports science on him probably if this was like 15 years ago. But I just think that he is a ton of fun to watch. Still ends up in this top collection of players in this class.
Yeah, Boston. I really liked Boston. This was another one where it was like, it's not a surprise necessarily that he's here, but I was surprised with how much I liked him. Like he is a firm first round NFL graded wide receiver for me. Like I think he is
I like that. I think his quarterback was also horrible. I'll put that on.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll put that on here right now on wax. Quarterback is bad.
True freshman quarterback at Washington. And there were definitely plenty of moments watching Boston where I was like, what are we doing here? Yeah. But
give this luckily, guy Mendoza, see what happens.
Exactly. Luckily for the quarterback, Boston helped him out a little bit with his catch radius and the ridiculous catches that he was making all season long. That is, of course, point number one on the scouting report is just a ridiculous ability at the catch point. One of these guys that has that size and backs it up with his ability to go up, grab it, secure it. 9 for 12 uncontested this year. That was 75%. But outside of that, he's a better route runner than I thought he was too. Like he's got legitimate skill as a route runner. You alluded to it, a little bit more hit and miss off the line of scrimmage. I definitely saw some like good releases and also he's like varying his releases as well. Like you see him throw in a few different release moves, but really you kind of see it once he gets into it. Like you said, he kind of builds up a little bit of speed. But honestly, like the slant route is a really nice route that he runs. Saw him run a lot of nice routes against zone. Really understands how to identify those spaces. They run him on crossing routes quite a few times. He's able to, create yards after the catch on those plays at this size, which is a plus as well. So I think he was more of a complete wide receiver than I anticipated based on what I saw in the summer. Because in the summer, I was like really turned off with the athleticism and like the route running was good, but at the same time, it was kind of like, I feel like you're in the danger zone of being one of these contested catch players. I think he really elevated himself this year. I think he really stepped outside of that. Like we're not in the red with him anymore. Like he's proven he's a better separator than he showed last year. So I was really, really excited by him.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like when he gets into his route and he gets his feet under him, I think it's real hard to sit there as a DB and be like, man, I'm going to bear down on this guy because he can blow by you. And then even if he's not blowing by you per se, but like getting a step on you even is like red, like alarm bells. We're in trouble here because if they get this ball over the top and, I got a 12 behind me, he's going to box me out and go get this thing. And that's where that contested catch number comes in. So I was impressed. I didn't expect to see the technical ability that he had. He's a very willing blocker. I think that was a big plus where he's willing to like get downfield and like chase down a guy that's like 40 yards downfield. The guy's tackled and he's still chasing after this guy to go block him, and the cornerback's like, all right, man, relax. But I liked that. Maybe not like a perfect blocker, but also they gave him more like yak opportunities than I expected to see. Some like bubble screens and stuff like that, where I guess I kind of you think of this is my X receiver. He's not going to do that much, and you don't see a ton of it. But when he gets the ball in his hands, it's not like he's a slouch. Like he is making things happen. I just wish he had a quarterback that threw him the ball on time. Like that was my biggest thing. Is a lot of these throws are coming in late as coverage is like starting to figure out what's going on. It's these long developing plays that didn't need to be long developing if you just 1, 2, 3 hit Boston.
Yeah, those like hitch spot route like that,
Yeah.
like he's turning those into extra yards almost every time. Like they'll get it to him 5 yards and he's making that into 8 every time.
Absolutely.
And sometimes 15. Like also I think it's important to say he can stretch the field.
Yeah.
Like that build up speed that you're referring to, that manifests in like he can run goes and posts and like actually threaten over the top in a way that like a Sarratt just like doesn't really do ever. He has that sort of next gear where he can create those big plays as well. So that's definitely one of the things that for me puts him as like pretty easily a first round player when you have the catch point talent and a little bit of route running nuance, but you also have the athleticism and the speed to threaten over the top. The one thing I'll say with him in terms of the weaknesses, as good as he is on kind of like the slants, hitch, crossing route, like he can run like kind of a lot of those little quick hitters really well. The comebacks and the curls and like the ones where he has to like stop hard, those I thought were definitely some of his weaker routes. There were definitely a lot of steps on top. And so like as an outside player, like that's kind of one of those things that you don't love to see, because if you can't run the comeback, then like we can play you, the corner can play you deep and then recover if you do try to hit that route. So like we had that conversation with Brian Thomas Jr. 2 years ago, and then it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but it definitely showed up for Boston.
Did it not matter?
Well, I guess, well,
never wrong, only early.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. So where are we at? Number 3 already?
Number 3. Wow. Flying feels like. All right. My number 3 is Carnell Tate. And you have met too.
I do.
That's awesome. I thought about it. I really did. And I was like, you told me, you're like, I have something a little bit spicy. And I was hoping that it would be like Carnell Tate number 1. But number 2, also appropriate. So Tate, I mean, this film is like NSFW. This is like these top 3 guys are like hot, where you look at this and you're pulling the collar a little bit. And you're like, man, this is so. Tate is a nuanced route runner. I mean, Hartline is a wizard, man. I don't know what he's doing to these wide receivers, but somebody like Michigan is stealing the wrong, like filming the wrong stuff. They should have a camera at their practices pointed at their wide receiver drills and the film and whatever, because Carnell Tate is like so much better of a player than he was last year, and like he's doing all the same stuff. It's just all at such a higher level where he's getting open deep, and like the route running is so sick. Like again, it's like you paint this picture of who this player is throughout the season, then you kind of try to flush all that and rewire yourself with these rankings. And I watched Tate, and it's like, God, he is so sudden. Like he just gets in and out of these breaks in such a sick fashion, and like it gives so much separation, and he's getting on these guys' toes. He's finding these blind spots, making these guys like spin around and then sitting down in these like in against zone too. He's like finding all these soft spots, and then he's just like the best contested catch guy in the class. And like on top of everything else, it's like, ooh man, this is a little bit like concerning. And the one knock on him that I have, and I think that it's still true after watching the tape, is like doesn't really do that much after the catch. Doesn't make guys miss, doesn't like break tackles, and like, you know what? I don't know if I care that much.
Yeah. I was ready. After last week, I was kind of teasing it a little bit and I was like hyping myself up. Ultimately, he's going to sit here at number 2 for me. Like him and number 1, it's real close. It's way closer than I thought it was going to be. Tate is a player that I would be afraid to miss out on. And that's the thing. Like if I'm sitting in a dynasty rookie draft and I have this kind of draft capital, I just don't want to pass on him because he is a player that I teased this a little bit last week, and we had a commenter kind of try to get inside my mind and guess where I was going. Sam Sutter thought maybe I was sticking with the Ohio State roots with Terry McLaurin, and that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. But I'm shooting higher.
Oh.
I'm shooting for the moon.
Uh-oh.
And I don't know, man. There's a lot of Justin Jefferson in his game.
Wow.
There is.
Oh.
And I'm talking about Jefferson at LSU. Like I'm thinking back.
Not a bad player. It's not like, yeah. Oh no.
I'm thinking back to that scouting report, and the big difference is like that Joe Burrow LSU team was like the best offense in college football history, and Justin Jefferson had like 1,500 yards that year, while Tate is currently sitting at 860, and like they're going to be in the playoffs, so like he's gonna that number is going to grow throughout the season, I'm sure. But like there is a lot of similarities and a lot of like, I feel like the discourse is also very similar, where like back when Jefferson was coming out, it was like, well, he's the number 2 behind Jamar Chase. So like, I mean, yeah, he seems pretty good, but like, can he really be like that good if he can't even beat out Chase? And then it's like, well, yeah, because Chase is the best wide receiver. And guess who's in front of Carnell Tate right now? The best one we've seen since that point. So,
yeah.
But I'm talking about it as, in terms of similar size, like similar route running ability in college. Jefferson was not a super polished, high end, like route runner coming out. He was a very good one, but that was a skill that he developed in the league and became who he is today over the course of like his rookie and sophomore seasons. I think Tate is offering you a lot of that nuance right now, where he is running every route. He's running all 3 levels of the field. He understands all of the little bits of route running, like manipulating a corner, using his upper body. He's so good at getting into blind spots, like pacing his routes and just getting the corner totally mixed up and getting into that spot where he can make his break and it's just game over. We've talked about it all year, his ability to stretch the field despite not necessarily feeling like one of these super speedy guys. And I honestly kind of think that he might test better than we think he's going to. And guess who did the exact same thing? When Justin Jefferson ran the low 4.4 time, it was like, wait a minute, he has that level of speed? Are you serious? I feel like it's going to be a very similar experience with Tate. And then the big calling card right now. I mean, like the route running is obviously exceptional at this size, and his fluidity at this size is amazing. Him at the catch point is something that is rare. It is absolutely a rare talent that he has. And it's not only his ability to catch the ball and to create a wide catch radius. His ball tracking is second to none. The way that he is able to track the ball deep down the field and against the sideline and make these tough catches look totally routine. I mean, this is stuff we were talking about with Marv, and we were really like, praising him for like this rare, uncanny ability to just make these extremely difficult catches that if you're watching it live, you might not even realize the
Mm-hmm.
level of difficulty. And I feel like that happens with Tate a lot. So I know it's not what you always expect with these level of guys in terms of like a 1,500-yard collegiate season, but the tape was it was very, very, it was speaking loudly for me, where I just was like, yeah, he's legit. And honestly, I don't know that I would want to leave a dynasty draft without him if I was sitting at the top of it.
Yeah. Also, just like I think he has huge hands. I'm going to speculate on that. On the other end of things, is like when you can barely see like the brown of the football when he's got it. He wears white gloves, which I think makes your hands look bigger. But like when he's got that thing like squeezing it, it looks like the ball is barely in it. It looks like a Nerf ball. And so I think that, obviously plays in to the contested catch numbers. Also, like when he thinks he's going to be open, throws that hand up, which I love. It's like, yeah, give me the ball, Stan. Like I know Jeremiah Smith is going to get his 10 targets, but like I am going to score a touchdown if you throw this up to me. Threw that one up against Wisconsin when he like got over the top of a corner and he was like beating him and he threw the hand up and it's like double coverage, man. Like, but Sand gave him the chance and like threw it up and he went up and made that spectacular catch over two people. And it's like, all right, yeah, maybe I kind of wish this guy was the number one in an offense, because you also like you don't see it when you're kind of watching game to game. You're so kind of enamored with the Jeremiah Smith of it all. But you watch the L22 and like Tate is just as open, just as often. Like every time Four's getting the ball, you see 17 on the other side, like wide open. It's like, okay, if he played at, Indiana, would he have 1,200 yards, or if he played at, any of these other schools that are just funneling the ball to one player or whatever, like, would he be, a 1,300 yard player? I think he could be.
And you said it at the top. The one thing that he doesn't have is that yak skill. That's really it. That's honestly like he is a very complete wide receiver evaluation for me. Outside of just, yeah, he's not going to create a ton after the catch. You see bits and pieces of it, like it happens, but not consistently. And 4.3 yards after catch per reception this year, only 6 missed tackles forced. He's a pure separator, and he is a, throw it up to me and I'll do what I got to do. Like I will bring it down, but he's just not going to be one of these guys. And so there is a little bit of that dynamic in this top 3. So we're going to go through the rest of it here. Like they're all very close. This is not like Tate separated and like now the next guy's like way off the path for me. Like these guys are all right together. And that's exciting because like they're all super high end prospects.
Absolutely. So number
And
3 for you.
so number 3 for me then is Makai Lemon.
Damn right.
I mean,
he's at number 2 for me.
Okay. So we held firm to number 1, but Makai Lemon.
I should have teased that a little more. I should have waited.
Okay.
Kind of gave up the.
That's okay.
Right.
It's okay. We
forget I said that, guys.
we already last week on the mock, it was kind of like, yeah, he's still the guy. But Lemon, this is a change for me because I did take Lemon over Tate in the mock, and now I'm changing that tune a little bit. Uh, Lemon though, I mean, it's not like anything really changed for me with Lemon. It's just like Tate like was I just couldn't say no to Tate at number 2. Meanwhile, I have Makai Lemon graded immediately behind him as a player that, despite being a little bit on the smaller end, is also a very complete wide receiver. Uh, like he's going to come in at 5'11, 195 instead of 6'3, 200 or whatever Tate's going to end up being. And number 1 is in this kind of in that ballpark. Despite Lemon being smaller, he's not playing small. And that's something that, like, I don't care what your size is. And that's one of the things we talked about last week, where it's like, what is the NFL going to do with him? Because we have seen guys like this, even the really talented ones, get pushed down the board because of the size numbers. But the one thing with Lemon that has stood out from last year all the way through this year, just tough as nails. I mean, such a willing blocker, such a competitor, very fierce in his routes. I mean, he is not playing small. He is playing bigger than his size. And then this year, the big thing that he added is the thing that the other top 2 guys don't have, which is incredible ability after the catch. So if you love yak players, if that's like your jam, you might have Lemon at number 1 in this class, and that would make complete sense because he is a very high-end yard creator at this position, and that is something that he developed this year. I mentioned this last week, but my scouting report for him in the summer was that he was a very explosive player that wasn't doing a ton after the catch. He wasn't translating the explosiveness that he was showing in his routes and the acceleration he was showing in his routes. He wasn't translating that to after the catch. This year he did in a huge way. And when we've talked about it all year long, the plays that he was making multiple defenders miss in the middle of the field and creating highlight reel touchdown plays week in, week out. This is your 2025 Bolitnikoff winner. This is the best wide receiver in college football, and he's a 5'11 slot guy. And it's because of those plays that he was making this season. So, great at the catch point as well, plays bigger than his size at the catch point, made some awesome contested catches this year. A lot of awesome catches in general this year. I mean, he's just he is such a fun player that really is only kind of like knocked down a couple pegs because of his size and some of the things that leads to, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, my biggest negative for him is like he's not as big as these other guys, and like
Yep.
that's no fault of his own. And I think he's doing everything in his power to like offset that with like how good he is at going up and getting it and making. I mean, like awesome route runner. These top 3, I think, are like real close. All 3 of these guys, like. I think you could go right putting any of them in the number 1 spot and any of them in the number 3 spot, whatever you value. I think they all 3 have like a lot of things, like the Venn diagram. They share a lot of things. They have different things, but I think like Lemon, great route runner, great after the catch. I don't want to echo everything you just said, but like I feel pretty similarly where he is like gritty as a receiver. I think there's like even more on the plate that like he could have had this season. I think like there's a lot of times in this where he's open and like the quarterback just can't find him or like overthrows him or one thing leads to another and just like can't get him the ball. But I think he's open even more, and the fact that he had 1,200 yards and like he could have had another just from like my count of like, hey, wide open and like should have hit him. Could have probably had another like 200 yards, just like easily. So really awesome player, a guy that you can feel really good about sticking into that. If you have 104 in this class, 103 in this class, I think you're running away with your pick. You're running up to the podium. You're like, hey man, give me Makai Lemon because I think he's going to be sick. So now it's just waiting to see the landing spot and all that stuff. I think that's going to make a big difference in a lot of people's eyes with these top three players. Is like, are they in a heavy passing offense? Are they going to be paired with a good quarterback? That's another thing that goes into this. But as of now, I feel really good about Lemon. The fact that I have him over Tate when I love Tate so much is simply because of that run after catch that he has and that Tate doesn't. Kind of talked a little bit about it last week where you live with the play that is drawn up, and you throw the ball, you get your 6 yards and whatever. Lemon, you drop a play and you get a full. Now he's a running back with the ball in his hands, and so now we're making a guy miss. We're getting an extra 7-8 yards on this play, and so I just feel like there's a little bit more. I don't know if like upside's the right word, but there's a little bit more juice that you can get out of the squeeze with Lemon. Whoa. No pun intended.
Oh my God.
Wow. No pun intended.
That was awesome. Yes. I mean, it's the blessing and the curse with the top end of this class is like, you're going to get one of these guys. If you have a top 4 pick, it feels like you can't go wrong with any of them, but it also feels like you might pick the wrong one.
Yeah. The fact is, no matter what you do, it'll be the wrong thing. And like
Exactly.
your league mate that doesn't know what he's doing is going to take the leftover guy and he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So either way, you're screwed. But I think for me, one of the things that led me to eventually decide, yes, I would like to move Tate above Lemon. And it's fairly minor, but the Notre Dame game where Notre Dame has a cornerback named Leonard Moore, who I learned about after watching this game because I was like, who the hell is 15? And it turns out, it seems like 2027 maybe has a CB1 in Leonard Moore from Notre Dame. But I mean, so Moore is 6'2", 195, longer, very obviously a longer armed cornerback. And so when Lemon is matched up with Moore and Moore's in man coverage, like, it was pretty apparent that Moore's length was a problem for Lemon. Like, he was getting stifled a little bit more. And the reason that I say it's not a huge like concern for me is because it's not like you're going to be playing Lemon on the line of scrimmage all that often. Like, I think he is going to be a primary slot player in the NFL, and you can play him off the line of scrimmage on the outside if you want to do that as well. But like in instances where he is matched up against longer players, like that is going to be something that inhibits him a little bit. And I think that was something that showed up last year. That was one of the weaknesses that I had for him last year. I think he did a better job navigating it this year. I think even in the situations where they were lining him up on the line of scrimmage, even from, in a slot alignment, there were definitely reps where he was beating press coverage, not only with his releases, but also with his hands. But when a longer cornerback is able to get hands on him, it's a little bit more challenging. So that to me is like, it's a little bit like you can't really go wrong either way, where it's like a guy like Tate, I'm not worried about that at all. Like, you're going to win against in any alignment, against any corner, man zone, whatever. Lemon, it's just a little bit more of a specialized role, I feel like, in the NFL, but that again is something that has become very in vogue. It's not like we're asking these guys
Right.
to play against, you have to beat press man corners, and that's how you're going to become the best wide receiver in the league. So just something that I noticed with him that's a little bit of a differentiator between him and the two other guys. But yeah.
Hey, that guy's a holding merchant. All right, I don't want to hear it. The guy's grabbing them every rep. I'm not. I trust NFL refs to call that. Damn it, the guy's got a handful of jersey on every rep.
Okay, so we know
he
that
also
you're fading Leonard
smoked
Moore.
him on a slant route in this game and didn't get
Yes,
the ball.
he did. He
that.
certainly had his wins.
Yeah.
Yes. So
it's not. I don't want somebody to be like, well, he can't play against anybody that's over 6 foot. I don't want that picture to be painted. Don't slander my king.
See, this is what happens when you point something out, and then it's like, well, for the rest of time, Lemon can't win against press coverage. He can't win against outside corners. Like,
so I just want to make sure that nobody thinks that you are saying that by saying, hey, he definitely can. It's just he did have a little bit of a struggle against this guy, which, I think a lot of people would have.
Yes. That's definitely true. All right. That leaves one.
Jordyn Tyson.
We just gassed up Tate and Lemon so hard. So what does that say about Tyson?
Yeah.
That he's the consensus number one here.
It says that not a lot has changed from the summer till now, because we were talking about, Tyson. We talked about Lemon. We talked about a lot of other guys in the summer. I mentioned Tate. But Tyson has kind of always been the guy, and I am very open to shifting and changing my priors. Like, I'm not trying to be stuck on my take and be like, yeah, I was right, since I don't care about that. But when the tape looks as good as this looks, kind of can't help it, and so Tyson has all of the tools in the bag. I think that's the differentiator for me between the other two guys, where they're all in this tier together. Who do you decide is going to be number one? I think Tyson has the build of a number one receiver in the NFL right now with the skill set he has. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He is a wicked separator. We talked about how Lemon can separate, how Tate can separate. Both of those are very true. I think Tyson is a better separator than both of them. He has arrogant hands. Some of the, it's almost second nature, just like catching the football. And it can be in a tough situation, it can be in an easy situation, but it makes him turning into a runner even easier, because he's not it doesn't make it look hard. He's just catching the ball, transitioning to a runner, really smooth, really easy. And the athleticism is really good. I think he's faster than I thought he was. And maybe looking at him later in the season is a part of why, because it's after the injuries and everything. But if you look back at the early season stuff, it's man, he has a ton of burst. He has a ton of speed. He's closing distance. He's making insane catches in some of these games. And it's routine for this offense to hey, Jordyn, please bail us out. And that felt like it almost was Arizona State's game plan at some point in the season, against TCU. It was just be a superhero, Zero. And he was. And so I feel pretty good about having him at the top. Like I said, you can make arguments, and I will hear out and respect all those arguments to move any of these guys around in any of these spots. But I feel great about Tyson at one.
That TCU game, I have written, Sam Levitt is preventing this from being a 200+ yard receiving game.
Yeah.
And that feels very representative of his entire sample.
At least Sam Levitt was getting him the ball, man.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and Levitt was a player that I kind of liked a little bit heading into the year. And then it's you still see these games where it's man, Tyson is just on a different level out here than most of the guys. And it was so stark from last year to this year. with the just talent discrepancy and how different this Arizona State team was. I mean, obviously the offense last year was so exciting and with Scattaboo and the playoff, like that whole thing. And then this year's completely different story and the multiple quarterbacks. And so it's very hard to look at this. Like, you want to feel better about the senior year. You want to feel like, or I guess his redshirt junior year, you want to feel better about it. Like, you wanted him to have that 1,200 plus yard season this year, but like, it could have been that easily. Like, he should have, even in the games that he just played, I feel like he should have been like almost a 900-yard receiver. And that was with missing a pretty decent chunk of games in the season. So it was like, he's still having an excellent year. And it's all of the things that you were touching on. Like, as a separator, he's incredible. I mean, like, I I do think there is a very worthwhile argument if you wanted to like really, split hairs and get into it. Like, I think the Tate versus Tyson debate as a route runner is worthwhile to have. Both of them are incredible. I think one of the things with Tyson that kind of pushes him over the edge for me, I think he is more physical than Tate is. Tate is a more finesse, nuance route runner, where Tyson can do that and does that, but he's also a very physical route runner. And he will use his hands and he will use his body in the route to create space as much as he is with his feet and with his technique. So I think a little bit more in his tool bag, perhaps, which is kind of one of the reasons he ends up still here at number one for me. The catch point, you said it. He's making ridiculous catches like every single game. And this 7 for 16 uncontested, I really just don't think is indicative of his ability at the catch
Fake
point.
news.
Like, I mean, there's like, and some of it's like happening in the middle of the field where he's got guys coming down on him. Like, there's one play where it's like the ball's behind him and he reaches back, tips it up to himself and makes the catch, like, while defenders are like circling him. Like, he's just completely unfazed by it. And he's just making this composed play in the middle of the field. And then, taking a big hit and holding on to it even after that. So I think there's a toughness element to his game that is really important as well to note. Awesome blocker, fierce competitor out there. Like, that's very clear as well. So he's, yeah, about as complete as you get. The yak stuff, that's going to be the big thing. We've talked about that a lot. And that's, another, when we talk about Tate's discrepancies, like, that's going to show up here with Tyson. I think he showed you a little bit early in the year, and I don't know if like the injury that he picked up, like if that was kind of playing a factor in this. It seemed like he was maybe starting to add a little bit of a yak skill to his game early on in the season. To be honest with you, the number one thing for me with him, and the reason why I even seriously considered putting Carnell Tate at number one, the injuries are concerning to me. Like, you don't want to fall into that trap of being like, well, he's getting hurt every year, so he's obviously going to get hurt in the next level, because we've seen that not happen. But I think like knee injury, then it was the collarbone last year, but now it's the soft tissue, like it's the hamstring stuff. Like, so when you have a player here that he is a physical player and he's picking up injuries every year, there is a little bit of concern there that it's like, am I going to draft this guy number 2 overall? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, he just missed half his rookie year with a hamstring injury. And now it's like, we're behind schedule.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. Is like, I don't want to like be concerned. I don't want to have that like yellow questionable on this player every game of his career, because that's one of the more frustrating things. It's like there's a select handful of guys that like you kind of know as the guys that are like a little slow to get up, whatever. I don't think Tyson is one of those players, but it's definitely, if you're missing time in your college career this much, it's something to note. Another thing about his route running that I noticed a lot, he like spams the rocker step, which is like you're going in and you're like giving him that like outside fake, stepping on his outside hip, and then you're coming back inside. And like, great, because it works a lot, but like eventually you put that on tape enough for NFL teams to look at, we're going to have a conversation about that in the film room, and like a cornerback's going to key in on that. So I'm sure that's not going to be a thing to be concerned about, but like, man, I was like, oh, another rock. Oh, all right. We're doing it 3 times in a row on this drive. Like, all right. But I'm sure it'll be no big deal, but just something that I had to note.
There it is.
There it is.
That is 8 wide receivers from each of us, and I think we may have hit 10 total, actually.
Chris Bell and Germie Bernard.
Bernard, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so
is that 10? Is that? Yeah, I don't know.
It's been a long episode. I don't expect me to count
I'm
right
burnt.
now. But it was a good long episode because it's been a long time. We've been waiting for a long time to get to this point, and especially with this wide receiver group, which really became the hallmark of this class. I think over the season, these guys really started to emerge, and guys that we liked in the summer got better this year, and now we like them even more. So this is definitely a fun group, and I think it's kind of the highlight of 26. And we got 3 guys, this tier at the top that is very, very high end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can't go wrong with any of these top 3, which means you will go wrong with the one you pick. But I think that you can feel pretty good if you have, top 4 pick in this class if you tuned into the mock draft. If you haven't, you can go spin that too in the meantime until we get to more position groups, because if you're curious what we think about running backs, about IDP, maybe a tight end or 2 comes into the discussion in that mock draft, you'll have to tune in to find out.
So that's 10, but it's a lot of wide receivers in this class. Were there any other names that you feel particularly inclined to mention on this episode?
Let's see. I feel like, I still have a little bit of a soft spot for Zachariah Branch, and I know that that's a name that like we haven't brought up a ton, and we haven't talked about a lot this year, but dynamic player, small receiver. We talked about how everybody's 5'11", 190. I think he's even smaller than that, but he makes up for it with this like electric blazing speed, and he's a run after catch guy. He's a deep threat, and he's a returner on top of all that. There's other players that like kind of fell a little bit when you watch the tape, and it's like Chris Brazzell, who I liked a lot early on, but you get into it and it's like there's not a lot of routes there and like whatever, but he's a 6'5" burner, 6'5", 200-pound burner out of Tennessee that like if that's your style, then like I can support your decision making if you want to go for that. Jacoby Lane, who is Makai Lemon's teammate at USC, fun contested catch X receiver. I can go down a long list because there's a lot of names here.
But here's the thing: I feel like the names that we talked about, the top 10, it feels like that is kind of like my tier kind of cut off.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like a lot of the names that you're rattling off, like these are the guys that are kind of coming up next on my list, but like they're also kind of a big tier down.
Yeah.
So I think this is a deep wide receiver class.
How do your wide receiver tiers shape up with the players that we talked about today?
So there's the three guys on top, and then there's Boston and Sarratt,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's Concepcion and Williams, and then Bernard, Bell, and then I think that's another break.
Okay. Yeah, I have Tyson, Lemon, Tate, and then Boston, Sarratt, and then Bell, Concepcion, and Williams.
So it's like there's already like 4 tiers in the top 10 as of right now.
Yeah.
And then it's like you get outside of that and it's kind of like, yeah, there's the interesting stuff with these guys. And of course, like there are more guys that I am genuinely excited to watch that I wasn't able to get to. Some of these like senior standout guys that we're going to see most likely at the Senior Bowl, like Eric McAllister. I wasn't able to get into his film that deeply. Josh Cameron, I haven't watched at all yet. I'm excited to watch him. And then there's plenty of other names to fill in the rest of it, and maybe there's going to be some surprises in there. But like Brazel, fine. Like he's not Jalen Hyatt, but honestly, he wasn't what I was hoping he was going to be either.
Jalen Hyatt, derogatory, just so everybody knows.
Very derogatory. Though I guess the one name that I'll just kind of put out there that is in this like fringe top 12-ish area for me right now is Skylar Bell from UConn, who I think it was the first game of their season was against Illinois. And like, I thought he had a really rough game against Illinois. And I like almost didn't even continue watching him. I was like,
And it's hard because everybody had a good game against Illinois.
What was funny about Illinois was I feel like I watched like 4 receivers that played Illinois. And honestly, I feel like Illinois kind of was like, they might have some players in their secondary because they were kind of looking pretty decent. But Skylar Bell, one of the most productive wide receivers in college football this year. He was like 3rd, I think, in receiving yards. And as the season progressed, I watched a couple more games, and like it seemed like as the season was going, he was getting better. Something that really stood out to me with him, technician. His releases, this is going to be the guy that goes to the Senior Bowl. And it's like all of a sudden we got Daniel Jeremiah like waxing poetic about his releases while he's like doing the one-on-ones. So not a supreme athlete or anything, but a lot of technique. Well, he was an interesting one for me that ended up getting a kind of like a later day 2 grade, kind of a fringe day 2, day 3 grade. But yeah, that's like, other than that, it's just kind of like everybody was just fine.
Yeah, I think I would put that tag on a lot of these guys that I watched that are in this next, couple tiers, this next, maybe late 2nd round dynasty pick situation where you're like, all right, I guess I'm, mentally preparing myself to take, Omar Cooper, where it's like, yeah, he had some fun moments and he's a solid player, but like, am I excited about it? I don't know.
All right. There it is. Wide receiver 2.0 and the beginning of our 2.0 rankings series for 2026, which will continue after a short intermission because next week is Christmas and we are
to check the calendar real quick. I saw that. Next week, I think, next week is Christmas.
Somehow time is moving at the ridiculous pace once again, and next week is Christmas. So we are going to take a holiday intermission here. Schedules are going to get crazy. So even if we wanted to, probably wouldn't work out anyway. So we just decide, let's just take the week off, which will give us a little extra time to get into this running back class, which will be coming in a couple of weeks. And we had a comment on the mock draft last week from Waffle Boy PhD.
I love waffles.
I love waffles. He seems like a smart character as well. And he or she or they were excited about the running back class, the deep cuts of the running back class.
That's right.
So, and we had a few extra ones in the mock last week with Jadarian Price and Katron Allen. So we will talk about those players potentially and many more on Running Backs 2.0 as we explore this interesting and potentially, allegedly lackluster running back group. Or is it?
Yeah. Coming up on Camp Dynasty, why this running back class is actually better than 2027. Stick around.
Nothing is better than 2027.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get the people to watch. Damn it.
Even next year, when it's not as good as we thought it was going to be, it's still going to be like, this is the greatest draft class of all time.
Trying to farm content.
I get it.
Trying to get the people to watch the next one.
I get it. Jeremiah Love is worth the price of admission by himself.
Damn right.
But if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to find us on Twitter, camp_dynasty, and TikTok at camp.dynasty, where videos are going up as we speak. So be sure to get in on that action. And if you are watching this episode on YouTube, hello, thanks for being here. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. We appreciate that. Leave a comment. Fill the comments up. Let us know. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I know the latter is a lot easier, so do that.
It's free to insult a stranger on the internet.
It is. It is. I likened Carnell Tate to Justin Jefferson. Just please tell me why that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if you are listening on the pod feed, of course, like and follow and rate and leave a review there if you'd like. You can comment also on Spotify. So do all of those things if you would like, because we would appreciate it if you did. And with that, I think that means we are on to our holiday break and a lot more film.
Yeah, go watch Marty Supreme talking about film coming out on Christmas Day.
Thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.